The lead singer of the rock band Alice in Chains has been found dead in his Seattle home. The partially decomposed body of 34-year-old Layne Staley was discovered Friday night.
After a prolonged battle with drug addiction, Alice in Chains singer Layne Staley died from a speedball overdose on April 5, 2002. The Alice in Chains singer tragically passed away at just 34 after battling a severe addiction to drugs that gradually led to his demise. In a heartbreaking interview near the end of his life, Staley expressed the hopelessness he felt. "I know I'm near death. I did crack and heroin for years. I never wanted to end my life this way. I know I have no chance. It's too late." By the time Staley overdosed in his Seattle apartment in April 2002, it came as little surprise to those who knew him. After rising to fame with Alice in Chains in the 1990s, Staley's struggles with addiction became well known. His music often delved into the darkness of drug use, and in 1996, a Rolling Stone article publicly documented the puncture marks on his hands, a stark reminder of his battle. Fans of Alice in Chains watched as Layne Staley's addictions tore the band apart. After the group initially broke up in 1994 and later reconciled, Staley ultimately left in 1996 during their tour opening for Kiss. From there, he gradually retreated into a life of solitude. Rumors circulated that Staley kept to himself, his days on stage a distant memory, as he spent most of his time playing video games alone in his Seattle apartment. Though Staley had withdrawn from the public eye, he continued to use drugs to such an extent that other Seattle musicians openly admitted to avoiding him due to his lifestyle. As he lost contact with friends, bandmates, and family, Staley became increasingly reclusive. By 2002, Staley had become so isolated that it took weeks for anyone to realize he had overdosed and died. Born on August 22, 1967, Layne Thomas Staley harbored dreams of becoming a rock star from a young age. His aspirations were driven by two powerful desires. At just 12 years old, Staley made a fateful connection between sex, drugs, and rock and roll, as reported by Rolling Stone. Additionally, a 2003 MTV report revealed that Staley secretly hoped that fame might bring his estranged father, who had left the family when Layne was 7, back into his life. In high school, Staley transitioned from playing the drums to singing, finding in music a much-needed escape from the angst of adolescence. After graduating, he continued to perform with various bands, pursuing his rock star ambitions. In 1987, Layne Staley crossed paths with guitarist Jerry Cantrell. It wasn't long before their group expanded to include Mike Starr on bass and Sean Kinney on drums. With this lineup, Alice in Chains was born. The band experienced a swift yet occasionally turbulent rise, evolving from glam metal to grunge, a shift that drew some unfavorable comparisons to fellow Seattle group Soundgarden. Despite this, they gradually built a dedicated fan base with their albums Facelift, 1990, and Dirt, 1992. By 1994, cracks had begun to form within the group, largely due to Layne Staley's escalating drug addiction. Tensions among the band members reached a breaking point that summer when Staley, fresh out of rehab, showed up to practice high. This led to the band splitting up for 6 months. They eventually reconciled in 1995 and released their self-titled album, Alice in Chains. However, Staley's drug problem was evident to anyone paying attention. In a 1996 profile of the band, Rolling Stone described red round puncture marks from the wrist to the knuckles of Staley's left hand, noting that, as anyone who knows anything about IV drugs can tell you, The veins in the hands are used only after all the other veins have been tapped out. While Staley's drug use was no secret, Alice in Chains had multiple songs about heroin. The extent of his addiction was becoming increasingly apparent. Reflecting on his situation, Staley told the magazine, "When I tried drugs, they were fucking great, and they worked for me for years. But now they're turning against me, and I'm walking through hell, and this sucks." Over the next 6 years, Layne Staley's drug addiction continued to spiral, ultimately leading to his death in April 2002. Although Alice in Chains reunited in 1995, their comeback was short-lived. In 1996, after opening for Kiss, Layne Staley suffered an overdose. Following that incident, he largely withdrew from the public eye. Layne Staley periodically rejoined Alice in Chains, which never officially disbanded, but spent most of his time alone in his Seattle apartment, struggling with addiction and personal loss. In October 1996, his ex-girlfriend Demry Parrott died of a drug overdose, leaving Staley profoundly devastated and leading to a suicide watch. As time passed, Staley became increasingly reclusive. By 1999, Far Out magazine reported that his diet consisted of heroin, cocaine, and a meal supplement called Endure. He withdrew from friends and family, causing frustration for his former bandmates. He'd kept himself so locked up, both physically and emotionally, Kinney recalled. "I kept trying to make contact. Even if you could get into his building, he wasn't going to open the door. You'd phone, and he wouldn't answer. You couldn't just kick the door in and grab him, though there were so many times I thought about doing that. But if someone won't help themselves, what really can anyone else do?" Staley's relationship with Starr also deteriorated. Starr reportedly stormed out of Staley's apartment after Staley threatened to end their friendship if Starr tried to intervene. As Layne Staley's death approached, he appeared to recognize his urgent need for help, but seemed to believe that no one could truly assist him. In a 2002 interview with Argentinian writer Adriana Rubio, Layne Staley confessed, "I know I'm dying. I'm not doing well," according to Far Out. Staley likened his drug use to a diabetic's need for insulin, explaining to Rubio how drugs had devastated his health. "My liver is not functioning and I'm throwing up all the time and shitting my pants," he said. "The pain is more than you can handle. It's the worst pain in the world. Dope sick hurts the entire body." Just a few months after this interview, Layne Staley died on April 5, 2002. His reclusiveness meant that his death went unnoticed until his accountant raised the alarm after discovering that no money had been withdrawn from Staley's account for 2 weeks. On April 19th, police visited Staley's building and found him sitting upright in his dark, locked apartment, surrounded by heroin stains and drug paraphernalia. The singer weighed just 86 pounds and had a fully loaded syringe in his hand. At the age of 34, the Alice in Chains singer was dead. Layne Staley's death shocked Alice in Chains fans, though it wasn't entirely unexpected. In the wake of his passing, fans gathered at Seattle Center for an impromptu vigil to pay their respects. In a statement, the surviving members of Alice in Chains mourned Staley's death. "We are proud to have known him, to be his friend, and to create music with him. For the past decade, Layne struggled greatly. We can only hope that he has at last found some peace. We love you, Layne, dearly, and we will miss you endlessly." An autopsy conducted in May confirmed what many had suspected. Layne Staley, aged 34, had died from an overdose of speedball, a lethal mix of cocaine and heroin. Layne Staley's mother, Nancy McCallum, expressed hope that his story would highlight the importance of addressing addiction and advancing research for new treatments. Addiction is a disease like any other, McCallum told the Seattle Times in 2017. Like cancer, it can be treated, but it can also reoccur. We shouldn't judge. The emphasis should be on research and treatment.